wigs and a rubber band and let loose during a night out. It's not often in any genre of music that women who also looked forward to the after the club activities have been celebrated as opposed to shamed and shitted on for it. The more I listened to the song, the more attention I paid to the second part of the verse, where Gotti took his affirmation a step further. Right after a particularly childish line where he tried to distance himself from cunnilingus by suggesting that he only ate at Waffle or Huddle House, he laid out one of the most thoughtful, empathetic, responsible, and equitable casual sex scenarios that I'd ever heard in this context. I was grateful for a reference to his favorite condom brand, even if it was the gold-wrapped magnums that smell like a literal latex factory and make the inside of my vagina feel dry and itchy like a burlap sack. Safe sex is an underrated wave that more people should be on, but is often glossed over in music, movies, and TV, where sex is frequently depicted with an undertone of urgency and reckless spontaneity. Gotti also completely detached himself from the hypocritical shame on you ho finger wagging that male privilege emboldens so many Black men to do, especially in hip-hop. In fact, he explicitly stated that he could still respect her after their first night encounter because, shit, he was there too. At one point in the verse, he was almost encouraging her to stand pridefully in her decision and not use intoxication to justify her decision to bust it open for a Memphis nigga. In other words, Gotti didn't devalue or dehumanize this woman because she decided to give him some pussy. He wasn't ashamed, and for that very reason, he didn't think she should be either. I wish I could say every man I've fucked made me feel the same way, but this verse would do. To be clear, Yo Gotti didn't write a feminist manifesto. Having followed his career in different interviews he's done, I would argue that he could benefit from a YouTube video or two on Black feminism. If I'm lucky, he'll read this book, but I digress. Gotti did lay out an alternative to how women, especially Black women, in similar situations are too often represented, acting only on the sexual desires of men, of lesser moral character for doing so, and not worth the respect of the same men who want to fuck them. I was already hyper aware of this dynamic and actively navigating it in my personal life. However, this verse made me reconsider how women were being talked about in trap music, a hip-hop subgenre that expresses some of the realities and aspirational views of Black folks from the hood, and how those narratives held up against the regular women I knew in the real world. From that moment, I felt like I needed to re-listen to all the trap music I loved and reconsider what I was being offered. Despite its mainstream popularity, trap music is still considered one of hip-hop's lowest forms. Part of this stems from elitist assumptions about Southern Black culture, including the accents and unique version of African-American vernacular and respectability politics. However, trap music is also often dismissed because of its representation and treatment of women. As a feminist, I'd often considered the question of why I not only subjected myself to it, but also reveled in it. Sitting with Gotti's verse pushed me beyond my frequent cop-out response. Trap music is problematic and sexist, but I like the beats. Like every other staple of Black women's lives, it was more complicated than that. Still, it felt initially counterintuitive to look for examples of affirming language in trap, a genre that had been labeled aggressively reductive. But there was a reason some trap songs made me put more bass in my voice when I shouted the lyrics over Sandy's speakers, or put my hands in the air at the club. I suddenly paid more attention to all the times Gucci Mane also openly rapped about his partners having abortions. I thought differently about Travis Porter letting a female's voice dominate their single Make It Rain with a straightforward demand. You want to see some ass? I want to see some cash. And what about all of the female rap I've been devouring since I was old enough to control the radio? Female rappers have often echoed the sentiments of male rappers.